To the Boardwalk and Beach Committee. It is February 3rd at 9 a.m. I want to welcome everybody and remind you that we are being recorded, audio and video. We need all to speak up. And for the members of the public that are here, if you're going to say anything, we'd like you to come to the podium so that you can be on camera, but also heard better on the recording. And just my typical welcome to the public is we're going to identify you all, and you have the opportunity to participate during the meeting and at the end, and again, come to the podium and state your name. Right now, I'm going to go into roll call. Well, let me say this. As of January 22nd this year, we will have been in business for 2 years. So we're at our 2-year anniversary. Thank you all for your commitment and willingness to participate in this valuable city committee. Right then we'll go to roll call. I'm Stan Mills, Chair of the Boardwalk and Beach Committee.
Brian Hancock, Star of the Sea.
Frank Cole, 24 Wilmington Avenue.
Allison Stein, 84 Sussex Street.
Jimmy Cordy, 70 Henlopen Avenue.
And I'd like to recognize members of the public here. We have Commissioner Susan Gay. Thank you for coming. We have City Manager Sharon Lynn, and we also have Director of Public Works Kevin Williams. And on the telephone in Texas is former Commissioner Jay Legree. Thank you all for being here. And just entered the room is Charlie Garlow, who is the chair of the Environment Committee for the city. And they're doing a little stint on, or they're interested in recycling, so I think he's here to listen in on our recycling presentation. From there, we'll go right into approval of minutes. The minutes were distributed earlier in draft form to the committee members. If we have any questions, bring them up. If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of December 16th, 2019.
Yes, I make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion and a second by motion by Brian and a second by Jimmy to approve the minutes as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, and it is unanimous that the minutes of that meeting have been approved. Thank you very much. We're going to go right into old business, and just a reminder to everybody, including anybody that might be watching, is that we are heavy into support documents, and we try to embed as many as we can into the agenda. So it's always wise for this meeting as well as any other committee meetings and the commissioner meetings, tree meetings, etc., to check the agenda 1, 2, 3 days prior to the meeting to see what kind of support documents are embedded into the agenda. So for old business, we're going to go into A, which is a review of committee authorization, mission statement, and principles. And you see up on the screen, it's just a quick reminder. Again, this is something we should probably do at least once a year. Just a reminder to us is what our mission and goals are. And what I really wanted to highlight in this is highlighted in bold, is that this committee is advisory to the commissioners. Of course, we have no authority, we don't make recommendations and that they're automatically followed. But we've had a good success record so far, and at least being listened to and attentive and given an awareness to everybody. Welcome, Chief Banks, Chief of the Police Department just came in and joined us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Continuing with our mission statement, that we examine issues related to maintaining the boardwalk as major asset. That's our guiding, our main mission statement. And our principles are clean, safe, friendly, do no harm, and aesthetics are important. And I just wanted to throw in there that over the many months, we have kind of clarified some of these guiding principles. Clean means not trashy, it's sanitary, well maintained. Safe means looking and feeling secure, well lighted, law enforcement's visible. Friendly is staff is welcoming and helpful, which we have found as so and been complimentary to the staff. do no harm, avoid doing damage. Aesthetics are important, protect our brand, even though we haven't really defined brand 100%, we kind of know what it is. And we last clarified by saying we want to protect our views of the ocean, beach, and boardwalk. Any questions? If not, we'll go on to the next item there, which is our reports. And we've got, let's see. We have two reports that were embedded in the agenda. One has to do with Boardwalk and Beach project funding. This was created out of our funding as a summary and passed on to the city manager and the mayor and commissioners. And rather than in a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, we prioritize them as high priority, mid priority, second priority, third priority type of things. And pretty much in the first round of priorities was maintenance and then public restrooms. Public restrooms being expansive, family restrooms, changing rooms, sufficiency of restrooms, etc. And then safety was a priority, and etc. Lastly, on there, kind of unprioritized was from one of our last meetings, was additional unranked considerations for budget, and that has to do with water refill stations being recommended when appropriate and at the appropriate time, not just going out there and replacing them right now, but when water fountains need replacing. If you recall, we have 4 water fountains along the length of the boardwalk, plus the 5th is a historic fountain that would be left alone, of course. And welcome. We have committee member Steve Kirsten just came in to join us, and we'll let you go around that way. Oh, right here. Face that way for a second and wave.
No, no.
There you go. Steve Kirsten. We welcome Steve here. Got to remember we're on camera. So we're continuing with some of the budget things. Water refill station, enhancing the web contact, consideration of installing AED units, and installation of dog poop containers. So those are some things. Again, the report, this is the first time I've actually put the reports in the agenda, and the reason is because we come up with the reports and we distribute them, but the public doesn't necessarily get access to them, and neither do you necessarily, other than I send them to you. But putting them in there gives the public access, in addition to giving us one last opportunity to see if there's any amendments or changes on anything that we might have. Any questions on the budget priorities report? If not, we'll go on to the next one, and that is considerations for rebuilding after a catastrophic storm. And that, I think, is rather obvious. So I just wanted it to be embedded and available to the public. Are there any questions on that? So again, these are trying to identify some things that, if desired by the city as changes to the existing footprint pattern, amenities on the boardwalk, that they would want to put some money in, perhaps for consultation and funding and design ahead of the game rather than waiting for the storm. Any questions? All right, we'll go to the next item there. Discussion of city budget relative to potential funding of some of the beach and boardwalk projects. I might need a little help here, Kevin, but my memory serves straight that in this year's budget, there's no funding for security, meaning extra video cameras at this point. Or Chief, if anybody talks, we need to come to the microphone.
You were just talking about the more video cameras. We're planning on installing through a violent crimes grant 2 more this spring sometime. Should be at Rehoboth Avenue at the top of that one on the north side and south side.
So while there's no specific line item for budgeting, you're still continuing to work on that through the grant process.
That is correct.
Very good.
And also the money's here, and the IT department is working with the vendor and they get those installed.
Very good. So that's security, one of the other things, well, security and cameras. The speakers was another thing. I don't know that that's,
These cameras will not have speakers to them. They'll be just a live feed and recorded back to the dispatch center.
okay. And then the other topic was speakers for the beach patrol.
Correct.
And I don't think there's no funding in that for this year. So that's, future. The other thing is recycling and restroom improvements. If you recall, this committee made recommendation to add family restrooms and changing rooms. We didn't know the magic formula of everything, but we came up with the recommendation for additional family restrooms at the Baltimore and Delaware Avenue. And our voices have been heard. The city management proposed in the budget adding 2 family restrooms and 7 changing rooms at the Delaware facility. And I think it's important that we also know that they're contemplating adding 2 family restrooms and 7 changing rooms at the Baltimore facility, in addition to putting a second floor for the beach patrol. So that seems to fit our goal. However, if I can articulate this correctly, Susan, you can correct me if not. When it was presented at the last budget, it was a proposal for 2 family restrooms and 7 changing rooms at the Delaware Avenue facility, with construction tentative to begin after this summer. So it would not be ready for this summer, after the summer. And the amount was estimated was $640,000. The commissioners kind of balked at that because, needless to say, it's a big sum. And they suggested, let's go back and look at different options. Can we get the price down somehow? And actually what they came up with, instead of 2 family restrooms and 7 changing rooms, to go with 4 family restrooms and no changing rooms. And so that is on the plate of Kevin and city manager to go back and do some adjustments and see where they can save money here or there, or what different configurations might be. And I guess this is an opportunity, perhaps, if we want to make another statement to the commissioners about the number of family restrooms and no changing rooms. Personally, I'm comfortable with the 4 family rooms, especially knowing that additional family restrooms are going to be installed in Baltimore in the future. I'm a little hesitant on changing rooms. Wanted to get does anybody here have comments or like to offer thoughts on no changing rooms?
I just had a question about what is our definition of a changing room? Is it just a room where you can change, or is it a shower?
It doesn't, none of the change, yeah, go ahead. Can you hear us okay, Jay?
Yes, I can, and I have some comments after you're finished.
Yes, thank you.
So the changing rooms were envisioned to be just that, an empty kind of shell, and not really a room that you would secure. It's got a door, but it's open at the bottom, open at the top, easy to wash out, easy to keep an eye on what's going on inside of it, that kind of thing. So the commissioners, the number was pretty high, so the commissioners asked us to look at maybe reducing the scope or changing the scope and look at a couple options. So hopefully we can get some feedback from the committee on. If you recall the drawing we had, and you've seen from the from the Delaware Avenue restroom complex, we had originally proposed 2 family restrooms in one corner and 2 family changing rooms. And the family changing room is just a larger changing room, right? And then kind of in between those on that back deck were several other smaller changing rooms. So they asked us to look at just doing 2 family restrooms and nothing else. They asked us to look at doing 4 family restrooms, replacing what we had as the 2 family changing rooms and making them family restrooms, and no changing rooms. And then the third one was 4 family restrooms, and the remaining, leave the old changing rooms in there. I think there's 3 that would remain just regular changing rooms in there. So those are kind of the things that we're running through the numbers on now to be able to go back to the board at the next meeting.
So you're actually doing more combinations than the commissioners had asked
Correct.
for, because the commissioners, again, out of that meeting, asked for 4 family restrooms and no changing rooms, so.
And if I recall, part of their conversation was that, I mean, if you're gonna have, if you can swing the 2 in each corner, wouldn't it be better for the small increase in price to do the plumbing on the other 2 restrooms? Because you can use a restroom for a changing room, you can't use a changing room for a restroom. So that was kind of part of the discussion that I recall at the last budget meeting. So we took that to look at, you know, depending upon what obviously the ultimate costs come in as, but would it make more sense to have 4 family restrooms and no designated family changing rooms, or keep the 2 and 2?
So would you, Jay has some comments, but let's offer to committee first. Do y'all have any comments on quantities, numbers? Well, then we'll go to Jay. Jay, remember, Jay's got a unique perspective there. He accompanied me 10 years ago. We toured 17 boardwalk towns in New Jersey. July of 2019, Jay accompanied me to a tour of 20 New Jersey boardwalk towns, plus Osage City, Maryland, and Bethany Beach. So Jay, I know you'd like to offer some comments.
Yes, I was catching. I just caught pieces of Kevin's remarks. Most of it was bleeding out for some reason, but that you and I remember that those changing rooms are hot items, and they were utilized. Especially by families and companions. But so I think they should have a really good priority, and they're not expensive. They're not an expensive addition in the scheme of things, but they're really vital. So I would definitely stay with at least 2 changing rooms on the Delaware, and then we can retalk that next year. But I think that was probably one of the most striking differences that I remember in the years that separated our 2 visits to the Jersey beaches, was the increased use of family and companion restrooms, and the increased use of the changing rooms, and when they're in close proximity, like the drawings are that Kevin has shown. It's having an attendant look at both the changing rooms and the family restrooms is an easy bridge. So if there's any way for the planners to keep those 2 changing rooms in that scheme, I would agree with y'all's impression of the situation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jay. I want to review real quickly, summarize, if you will, some of what I recall as changing rooms on these. I think Atlantic City, you know, one of the richest towns around, Atlantic City had little 3-foot by 3-foot wood shacks on the beach with space underneath, you know, so that you can see under there and everything. And my recollection is that was at the low end, and the high end was really still just a plain old room with a bench seat and some hooks, and that was it. None of them had any showers with it. The only ones that had some showers co-located with them were ones that where the shower was on the beach along with the changing room. So none of them have. I guess my thoughts on this is that I would like myself personally, or the committee, to make a recommendation that whatever they do, that they do not eliminate the changing rooms entirely. They have a minimum, say, of 2. And part of my thought process is that I don't think the city should be in the business of pointing to a family restroom for people to change clothes. So if we have no changing room, and somebody comes to the information kiosk or go to the police and say, where can I change my clothes? I don't think we should be in the business of saying, well, we don't have changing rooms, but let's send you to the family restrooms. For me, the family restrooms are for people, when you gotta go, you gotta go. There shouldn't be a line, especially a line of people that not using the restrooms, they're just as a changing room. So that's kind of my position on there. Now, I suppose if you didn't have changing rooms, you could direct a family unit to the family restroom or something, but altogether, my recommendation would be that we support a minimum changing rooms at both locations. Any feedback or?
I think Kevin made a good point, actually, that a family restroom can be used as a changing room and no doubt will be used as a changing room. So as an initial way forward, that's a good choice of the city if money and funding isn't available. But that's not to say that changing rooms can't come down later in future years.
Okay, well, we're gonna fight over that answer.
Well, you know it's gonna happen. You know it's
Oh,
gonna happen.
it may well be,
Yeah.
but I think, you know, adding the two family restrooms, I think would be significant cost. Adding a room with zero plumbing, I think is gonna be minimal. Allison?
I think in the absence of changing rooms, they're gonna use the family restrooms as changing rooms. And they're gonna tie those restrooms up for a very long time.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Kevin?
I was just gonna, could you put the drawing of it up? And when we talk about.
I don't have it.
And when we, I would just ask, when you talk about changing rooms, do you differentiate between a changing room and a family changing room?
And explain the difference.
One's bigger, so you can get in with a wheelchair and somebody to accompany you. So, yeah, I would just ask you to kind of specify that, because one of our options that we're looking at are basically 2 family restrooms versus 2 family changing rooms.
You can get in with a wheelchair and somebody to accompany.
Plus or minus, you know, whatever the other 3 changing rooms may be as well. So that it's not just as easy as saying family rooms versus no family rooms. We would talk about also family changing rooms, regular changing rooms, and in comparison to family changing rooms and family restrooms. That's what we're wrestling with now. So we would appreciate, you know, help with that.
Jay, we're having trouble here. We're hearing Kevin twice. Once is plenty, but it's reverberating. So I hope you can hear it. It's kind of funky.
Family changing rooms and family restrooms.
Just put his phone on mute.
Yeah.
So we're having trouble here. We're hearing Kevin twice. Once is plenty, but
Let me put this on.
I hope you can
He's
hear
got
it.
it on speaker, I think.
Let me put Allison was bleeding out on me. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Well, we're going to continue. If you have an opinion, then speak up. So
You may be hearing feedback from me.
Yeah.
Hold on.
So Kevin's asking that if we're going to specify or suggest a minimum 2 changing rooms, should the first 2 be family changing rooms, and then if it's successful, we add standard changing rooms in the future. Go ahead.
Are you saying that all of our changing rooms will not be ADA accessible?
The original proposal was 2 were ADA accessible and big enough for family units, and the other 5 were just those little small ones that you cannot get a wheelchair in.
Okay, kind of like those we saw at Seagirt.
Yeah.
I guess the real kicker is the presence of an attendant who can direct people. If she or he sees that the companion restrooms are not being utilized, then you have a mother with 3 or 4 kids standing there wanting to change. I think the attendant can help that a lot, but just letting people change in the restrooms I think is a showstopper. But there are times when you can utilize that way. But I think I heard Kevin say either or maybe you said either or, and I'd hate to see it come to that, because the changing rooms are relatively inexpensive when compared to a family restroom that's accessible.
Okay. So would the committee like to make a recommendation to the commissioners at the next budget meeting that, and this is the question mark, what do we want to say? That the 4 family restrooms at the Delaware facility is excellent, but we believe changing rooms should be there for some of the reasons I mentioned earlier, perhaps, that we don't want to be directing people to family restrooms to change clothes. And that whether they're family-size changing rooms or standard, maybe we go with the family-size changing rooms. If, as the first 2, and then if they can squeeze in additional ones, then go with the smaller ones. Yeah, Allison? Oh,
I was gonna say, I'll probably take some heat for this, but is 4 family changing rooms too many?
we don't know. We're building for the future, have no clue.
Okay.
In a lot of the boardwalk towns, we saw fewer, 1, 2, 3, but they also had a much greater frequency of restroom facilities up and down the boardwalk. So it averaged out where there were a lot more family restrooms in totality. Yeah.
I mean, just tying into what everybody said, I agree with you. I mean, I think it's something that inevitably we're going to have. And we might as well plan for it now. I also see your point regarding, you're going to have somebody who's going to take a family into the family bathroom to change everybody, and it's going to hold it up for somebody who really needs it. So I think it's more if we could use the Delaware Avenue more as let's put the 2 in, let's see how much they are used, and then when we go to do the Baltimore, then at least we'll have a guide, because we can do this after this upcoming season, and then the Baltimore one whenever that goes before the commission and leaves any other committees. At least we'll have, hey, this is how many times these changing rooms were used. And I think it's limited too. I mean, you're only going to have them used during, the day. I mean, no one's going to use them at night, so you don't need the attendant there, all the time. I mean, there are some people, I mean, I've noticed like 8 o'clock at night, when I'm walking on the boardwalk, that there are people, using the showers and stuff like that. But I think we're going to have a cutoff time on the changing rooms. You don't want them, the whole time open while the bathrooms are open.
Right. So you said minimum of 2 to start with. You're referring to family changing rooms. Changing rooms. Okay. Everybody fine with trying to summarize this conversation, passing it on? I mean, I think in essence, there's no miracle formula for what the right number of any of this is.
No, and you're still always going to have the people who, I mean, I just know, you always have had and always will have the people who just run into like the bathroom and, change their bathing suit and put on their shorts and head out. I mean, I don't think there's any way we could ever stop that, but at least.
So while there's no miracle formula, we do recommend that there be a combination of both family restroom and family changing room to start, and then if it's successful, add standard changing rooms later.
Correct.
Are we okay with that? Anything else? Anybody else have?
Helps a lot.
Okay.
For me, anyway, to focus.
Very good.
What we want to do.
Well, I appreciate you doing some different combinations and pricing structures to pass on to the commissioners so they have more options to look at. Anything else on that? If not, we'll go to the next item, which is old business, discussion on color scheme and logistics for trash and recycle containers on the program. As you know, this committee made recommendation to reinstitute a recycling program on the boardwalk and beach. And what I'd like to do is review a few things with you, if you give me a few minutes. One is in your support document is a report from December 2018 some time ago that we did when we were talking about how to get the trash truck off the boardwalk. We were looking at bin selections and aesthetics, and one of the comments on there was that bright blue color of the trash can was perhaps obnoxious or too repetitive and was captured in all the photographs, and could we get rid of it? And of course, we came to the appropriate time to address that would be when we finally would pursue recycling on the beach. So now we're at that. I'm gonna X out of there if there's no questions on that. Color options worksheet, PowerPoint. So how we approached it at the last meeting, and again, I'm gonna do this for some of those members that weren't here at the last meeting and for members of the public, that this is the worksheet we designed and presented at the December 16th meeting. So I'm just gonna go through these quickly. This is an existing boardwalk container. This is an existing residential recycle container that we were kind of enamored with the blue color and the flat yellow lid. And we came up with, I just presented some different options. Public Works was nice enough to get a couple different cans and stand up there with me. And so these are the kind of things that we looked at. And I think we were somewhat enamored with this one because we ended up choosing a blue color for the recycle bin and a yellow lid for the recycle. So these are some things. So again, this is just the worksheet that we came up with. For the container specifications, from our recommendations, the container specifications we passed on to Public Works, I have a report embedded in the agenda, but I'm just gonna verbalize it now. It was go with a dark gray drum, a dark gray trash bag because it overhangs, and a dark gray lid for the trash. And then the question was, well, what do we do of all those options we looked at or any other options? What kind of recycle bin do we want? And we came up with a blue to match that residential recycle can, and we came up with a yellow, thinking that it would be flat. And so we came up with these two options. Now this is the two options that I made a mock-up of. Public Works again got blue color and do this. And frankly, for everything I've ever done personally and citywide when it involves colors, I've always made mock-ups so we can see the colors, so that we understand. When we did that for streetscape with bricks and different things to see what are the actual colors. So because the photographs really don't necessarily do it justice. And frankly, out in the field, I saw this, and the blue to me was a day glow blue. It really wasn't the dark blue I was envisioning. And the yellow lid, instead of it being flat, it was three-dimensional. I call this a 3D lid. So I got concerned and I thought, I want to bring it back one more time to this committee, if the committee would have it, to look at it again. Why? Because remember, all down the boardwalk, you're going to see the next can and the next can and the next can and the next can, and they're all going to show up, especially if we do the three-dimensional yellow lid. Now, maybe that's good, but maybe that's not satisfying. So what I did is tried to come up with some different options. What I'd like us to do real quick, if that's all right, is to look at, just very quickly, it won't take much time, go through the recycling bins in New Jersey. And one of the things I think we can learn from these, Jay, can you see these slides?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so one of the things we're looking at, remember Jay toured a lot of these with me, is some of them, the bins are the same color, but it's the top lid that's different. Some are all the same, it's just the labeling that distinguishes one from another. Again, I'm just flipping through them. Just shout out if you want to stop at anything. So here, again, drums are about the same color. The lids are different color. This doesn't even have any labeling. Here's some specialty recycle bins here. There's blue recycle bins co-located with blue trash bins on the beach. You can see here some of the different types. I don't know that I've seen anything in yellow, but so here's that same theme, the different colors. Gray and blue. So here's what we have in Rehoboth. This is a reminder of what we have on Rehoboth Avenue. I want to just go back and show you a couple slides from Rehoboth Beach. I wanted to show you a couple. This is a trash can co-located with a recycle bin. You know, this is our new big belly type system. This is on the very north tip of the boardwalk on the concrete area. And again, it's got the same container drum colors kind of thing, as you can see. Here's a typical barrel that we use in the commercial area. You know, you can see them up and down the street. If we eventually did recycling there, you know, what would we use? Well, we're not there yet. So, but the point there, I guess, is to show you it's kind of a gray theme. So it kind of matches what we picked for the trash anyhow. What I wanted to show now is I put in your PDF. It's hard to keep track of. Dendrak did a commercial toolkit on how to institute public space recycling. And if you look through it, it says identify materials in your waste stream. Well, we're identifying them by labeling, and we're looking for plastic bottles and aluminum cans, which are the two top commodities being sold for recycling in Delaware at this point. It also says collection bins should look different from each other somehow. Use clear liners so the service staff can identify them, and that was part of our recommendation, that the trash bags are the gray or the clear bags used for recycling. It said bin placements, they're co-located, color-coded perhaps is one option, blue for recycling, black for trash. But here's some examples. Outreach and education would be a part of what we're doing, I'm sure. Identifying what's acceptable and is not. Restricted openings, you can see there that we're fulfill what we're doing with the lids. So back to, here's just one more. This is an article. Again, it's got the all black bottoms with identifiers up top using colors and labels. So what I did is, again, just assuming that you're willing to take a second look at it, even if we come up with the same recommendation, but take a look at some different color options using a different kind of perspective. I came up with the following. And we can, if we had any other color combination, we can certainly have them do that and then come back at the February 24th meeting if we need that to finalize colors, because we're getting to a timeline, deadline. We want to be able to get Public Works recommendation and have the commissioners be able to weigh in at the same time. What I had them do is paint a little darker blue color instead of that day glow color, and you can't tell in the picture. You have to see it in real life, okay? And here, this is, we did not have the gray bags that fit in. So we got a gray bag and just draped it over the edge. We didn't have clear bags that fit in. We just draped it over the edge. And it really surprised me that the clear is not clear or what we think of clear. It's kind of a milky white. So this is kind of our original recommendation. Here's a recommendation, or here's another alternative with blue and blue. Again, the trash cans are all the same color, gray, gray, gray.
Stan, I mean, I think it's a good idea, but the one thing, since, we're doing all this in-house, with what other, I like the blue because it is, designating it as recycling, but if you could put that, just have them get like the thing and spray paint the recycling symbol,
Oh, that's an absolute, yeah.
Okay.
That's
And
part
then-
of our recommendation. We're not, these are just samples for the coloration, okay?
Yeah, I mean, I
Because
think.
we don't have time to put all the
Oh,
labels
understood,
on
understood.
until we decide what the lids are and things like this. So again, the combinations, we have this combination, it was a recommendation. If we want to confirm it or think of another, that's fine. Here's an alternative with the blue, the whole blue scheme, an alternative with 2 gray drums and a yellow lid. Again, the yellow lid, are we satisfied with it showing up at every dune crossing? Here's one with 2 gray drums and a blue that seems to fulfill what a lot of the other New Jersey towns do. And then this I just wanted you to see what the flat lid would look like with all these. And Kevin, the Public Works Director, while the 2003 report recommends kind of a flat lid with the 4-inch hole in it and the labeling and everything, Kevin was hesitant to use it because of it filling with water. And Kevin would prefer that we stick with what I call the 3D recommendation. So on your handout there, let me have all those handouts there. So these handouts kind of show the 4 different options. Just need to hand those out. So do we want to stick with it? Do we want to consider something different? Would like everybody to share opinions. Oh, and why this is so important to me again is because changing colors on the boardwalk for something been there forever has to have a logic to it and a good rationale to be able to do it. People don't like change. And I think this is probably the perfect time to consider changing the colors. The question is, well, what would be the color scheme?
I like that combination. Gray and blue top.
Right, the 2 gray drums, gray trash, and a blue top.
Yeah, it's less obvious, it's less in your face than the yellow.
I'm gonna disagree with Steve. I like the all gray with the all blue, or maybe the all gray with the blue and the yellow top.
But is that this one?
That one,
Okay, blue and blue,
the same one, but with the yellow top.
Yeah.
and that one. With a darker blue than that day glow blue, but.
Yeah.
But that, thanks for kind of this one. And this one.
I like this.
So far we have 2 opinions with 3 different colorations.
Yeah, I like that one. This is my favorite.
Allison likes the blue and blue. Jimmy, you were nodding your head, but I think it was.
Blue and yellow.
Blue and yellow, oh, the original coloration, okay.
Well, I detest the trash cans, and I made that.
I
note,
know.
You come into
You hate the metal drum.
Yeah, you come into the Rehoboth now and you see that new automatic type one that's in front of what used to be the 7-Eleven. And every time I come down Rehoboth Avenue, that reflects what Rehoboth is. It's modern. It's a up-to-date town. And this, to me, still looks industrial. It looks, and I know you get them free. And I know it's a budget issue, but if we have to stay with bins, I've got no opinion as to colours. Really don't.
Well, let's review real quick, if we would, with what the requirements were, so to speak. This is from Public Works. You can chime in there, Kevin, if you like. Kevin wanted a large volume. Well, this is for trash and/or recycling. Large volume, 55-gallon drums were preferred for both trash and recycling. The trash lid is a stock dark gray with a single-sided flap. That's what we have now, so retain that. We don't want to invest in new, those new ones. The recycle lid with the vertical holes to insert recyclables, as in this one, versus the flat lid for the reasons I mentioned about rain getting in there and liquids getting in there. Easy to dump, heavy enough to be stable on the windy boardwalk. So that kind of eliminates like our standard residential recycler bin. And then low cost for reintroduction of recycling onto the boardwalk. So that's what we had there. And I had notes here, glean from past committee meetings. We were looking for kind of an upscale type thing to make the boardwalk look nicer than trashy. Color not dominating the views of photos, especially because of the repetitiveness of the container locations, as we mentioned in that first aesthetics report in 2018. And then the 3 color components, the lid, the overhanging bag, and the container. And we also, from the last meetings, agreed that with Kevin's pointing out that even though this isn't a small trial of 3 units or something, it's the entirety of the boardwalk, it is still a trial rather than investing big bucks in new big containers that can cost $600 or something a piece. We would go with this kind of thing. So, Jay, did you have an opinion?
Yeah, no, I'm with you guys. Whatever color you like. I like the gray. I like the muted look. I like the understated look of the boardwalk. But something that really bothered me in New Jersey and here, and you might have already covered this because I'm not getting everything that Kevin was saying. But is there a way that we can minimize that overhang that those bags hang down? Did you cover that, Kevin? Is there some kind of a device or a clip or something we can use to keep those bags from hanging halfway down the barrel?
Obviously, the answer, you can get whatever size bag you want. I mean, this makes it most efficient for our guys as they're stuffing it in, and as the additional material gets dumped in there, it has a tendency to settle and pull the bag down a little bit. You get too small, and the first piece of trash you throw in there, and it collapses inside the barrel, which is what we're trying to avoid. So, whether there's one that's 4 inches shorter than that, I don't know. They come in volume kind of capacity. So,
well, I've always had trouble with the bags overhanging, personally. I'm just into the aesthetic of it or something. And I could just barely tolerate the one bag on the trash overhanging. Now we have recycle co-located with the trash, and we're going to have 2 trash bags. So I agree with you, Jay. Perhaps what we do is, because especially if you look at the difference there, how clean and nice that would be if we had liners and the bags internal. Perhaps what we can do is, after a while, using the bags, we can monitor how much the volume has gone down and how the collection is, and maybe we can afford liners sometime in the future. Considering being mindful that liners reduce the amount of volume in there, but then again, we're co-locating a recycle with a trash, so maybe we can go that route in the future. It's just more, and I don't know that it's more work for the guys because it's just a liner, as long as it doesn't increase the number of pickups. So I think the bag thing has got to come later, perhaps.
Okay.
Thank you, Jay. So you didn't help at all on what color? Pick a color, any color.
Well, if you're going to label the, I hate a yellow 3D. That darn thing just stands up like a moon. But if you're going to label them, why can't you label the gray and go forward with both of them being gray? Do you remember the ones you showed of Seagirt? Those are really nice looking, but they're labor intensive, and that's the worst part of it. I understand totally where Kevin's coming from, because that's a lot of work, changing those bags and stuff.
Well, you mentioned all gray. Are you meaning the drums being gray?
I mean the drums being gray, I mean the lids being gray with the recycle lid having labels on it. Does that make sense? Am I voicing my opinion? I know that probably no one agrees with this, but that's just I like the understated look. I think the beautiful beaches that we saw were all understated. They were not gaudy. They were not labels with commercial stuff pasted here and there. And I prefer a really understated look, and I could deal with gray as long as one of them is labeled recycles only.
So you understand what Jay's saying, this combo except with a gray lid on there.
Does that lid come in gray, Kevin?
Probably, I think it comes in 12 different colors or so. I think there needs to be differentiation. I really do. And I don't disagree with him, but I think there needs to be enough differentiation, and I think the yellow is too much.
I agree.
I agree.
You're looking at
And
different.
if I could just say one other thing, I think the opening is key to us, because even if you just say recycling on it or cans and bottles, if you have that original top that we're using now for trash, you're still going to get everything else in there. So we're trying to limit it just to that 4 or 5 inch hole, so it's clearly just bottles and cans.
Yeah, I think Jay was asking if that 3D lid also came in gray, in which case, which is somewhat indicative of recycling. But I still think you'd need labels and everything. So how can we wind this up? Does anybody state your name, and in fact, if you would come up to the microphone, because we need to get you recorded, and it'll put you on TV. So if you would state your name and address, and then give us your thoughts.
Good morning, first of all. My name is Steve Kaufman. I'm a new member of the Planning Commission. My address is 200 Stockley Street, and I prefer the one that the lady preferred, all gray and then all blue. That's what I think is the most appropriate. It's dignified, and it distinguishes between trash and recycling. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for the opportunity.
That's up on the screen. Thank you.
Are you accepting other citizen comment?
Yeah.
Thought I'd just put my 2 cents worth in. I agree with Mr. Williams. We should have that round hole so that people distinguish and put only glass or bottles and cans in there, because there's a problem with cross-contamination, as I understand from Mr. Williams. People are going to put, or are tending to put, trash in with the recyclables, and that goofs it all up for all that recycling that's in there.
That's a definite.
That's a definite.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that. But in order to help people with distinguishing and not putting trash into the recycling round hole, I think we're all agreeing on to be, if we can have a bright yellow color, that will help to draw people's attention to the fact that this really is for recycling and not just like the other can. If they're all the same color, it's all the same stuff, throw it all in there together. Even though that may appear gaudy or flashy or something like that to some others who'd rather be soft peddling the color scheme, I think a color scheme is good to help people to differentiate so that we minimize the amount of cross-contamination. As long as I'm up here, it'd be great to have a little sign on there that not only says recycling symbol and glass bottles and cans only, but a little statement says, if this bin is full to overflowing, please call or text this number, and then we would be able to come and pick it up before it gets to be an unsightly mess that people will be upset about.
Now, you provided all those comments as citizen.
Yes,
Garlow,
citizen
not-
Charles
not-
Garlow,
not on
82
behalf-
Sussex Street, Rehoboth
Not
Beach.
on behalf of the committee.
Correct.
I still think the yellow is too bright for me. The 3D one, I would be more comfortable with a little slightly domed one. And I'm not sure I'm in agreement that, in fact, I'm not in agreement that it needs to jump out, because if somebody has something in their hands and they're gonna either throw it away or recycle it, they're gonna get within 2 feet of that thing and they're gonna see, is it gonna go in the trash one or the recycle one? I think having the brighter color, I'm not convinced needs to be there, so that when you're down here, you need to see the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. So, I'm having a hard time keeping track. And it sounds like we're maybe leaning toward this one and that one.
Stan,
Yeah,
I'd like to make a motion to adopt that particular combination.
this one.
I think it's the most aesthetically pleasing and the most subtle.
This is blue. We're gonna call that blue and blue, okay? And then we're gonna call this gray, yellow.
No, we're not using the yellow, are we?
Well, I've got 4 combinations here.
Kevin, did the cans originally come in, are they black originally?
Yeah, I think they do they start black and then we hand paint. Right now, we hand paint. But we can get any color for the cans,
Right,
basically.
right.
But
I
the
just think
lids are somewhat restrictive. They may
just think it'd be
be
easier if we
10
had-
different colors, but it's only one of each color. There aren't shades of blue and shades of
The
gray.
cans will get used for either or, rather
Correct.
than have an inventory of one and an inventory of other. or
Correct.
Another color, we kept it consistent, I think would be easier.
The only difference would be that on the recycle one, we are anticipating getting a recycle sticker that goes
Right,
on it
yeah.
to make it, but the drum itself interchangeable.
Well, and I think we have been heading toward, for me, I'm looking at sophistication on the boardwalk, something that looks nicer rather than honky-tonk, if you will. And remembering what we have on Rehoboth Avenue, it's the gray theme with a gray top, right? That I like. I'm probably gonna. Well, see, I have two options. I can be fine with both. That's tricky. Well, how many, Frank, you liked, let's start with, now look at your sheet there if you need a reminder. How many, we can take formal, but let's, informally, how many would like this combination? So we've got 3, blue and blue is 3 plus whatever Stan decides. We've got gray and yellow.
Can't wait to jump on the wave.
That's the privilege of the chair. Gray and yellow, anybody, any takers? 0. We've got gray and blue, any takers? Did you? Okay, and then we have the blue and yellow, which was our original combination. Any takers on that? So really, it looks like we're going blue and blue. Now, would it be wise, or do we want to come up with a first and second priority or option to the commissioners, or we'll just go with blue and blue?
I think the blue and blue were the ones that the members of the public approved of. So we've got a lot of popular support already.
Okay, there we go. Okay. Jay, and Jay's convincible. You go with blue and blue. You there, Jay? I guess I lost him. Are you there? Oh, well.
Just not yellow.
All righty, so what we'll do is
All right.
we'll pass on this combination to the commissioners then. You know, if they ask about anything else, we'll tell them what came in second and the 2 losers. Anything else for this topic? I want to thank Kevin Williams, who's been very patient with me and buying extra paints and colors and painting these things and meeting me on the boardwalk and all that. So we thank you very much. Those regardless, somewhere that yellow lid will be used somewhere, I'm sure, because we don't want it to go to waste. So we have to figure out where that baby will go.
You'll paint it?
Let's see, to finish up on the recycling program, I just wanted to update you. The original budget, first budget presented, did not have funding for the recycling program. And the commissioners decided it was important enough to fund it this year. It was what, $15,000 to $17,000 for the drums and the lids and labeling and all that stuff. But a part of that program that Public Works developed was the addition of an electric vehicle for collection of that recyclables on the beach. So we had an electric vehicle distributor come, and he brought this little thing. It's all electric. This shows it without the bed. We would have a custom bed built, but you can see the comparison of sizes for having something on our boardwalk. It's very enticing.
Does it come with a yellow top?
No, but that's a good point. We need to have some Rehoboth Beach Recycles or something on
You
it.
can get it wrapped.
Yeah, there we go.
You can just get
There
it
we go.
wrapped.
So this is so that's the truck that came to Rehoboth, and it's what, $40,000 or so. So we're talking about a recycling package in the budget of say 15 to 17 plus 40, $65,000 or so.
Can you lease it?
And no, I don't know. They probably not because of the vendor it comes from, but that's something that they could certainly consider. And because their initial plan is to collect the trash separate from the recycle bin. I have seen, Jay, you might recall, we have seen pickups in other towns where they collected recyclables with the trash, but they're in different colored bags and they're put in different colored containers on the same truck or trailer, correct?
Yeah, it was Avon by the Sea, I think, or maybe Belmar did that. Worked well.
Yeah. So that's a potential if you get that far. The Ocean City, Maryland has a custom bed in their truck, and that's what this is. You can see, I don't know what Kevin's planning, but certainly one of Max's. The reason they had this built in Ocean City, Maryland is for collection of trash, because they don't do recycling in Ocean City, Maryland. And they had this custom bed built because it's watertight, liquid tight, so that any juices or effluent that leak out of the trash bags are then taken and dumped into a special sewer that then go to the sewer plant for treatment and everything. So, any questions on the whole recycling topic? Very good. Thank you very much. Are you all leaving? Okay. And thank you very much, Kevin. Kevin is leaving us. Next, we wanted, you'll recall that last time we kind of introduced the topic of do we as a committee want to make some position statements on aesthetics, protecting views, on commercialism. And we kind of threw out a few topics and said, well, let's give it some thought. As you can see from a handout, I don't know if it's embedded in the agenda or not. I did a quick draft of what do we want for position statements. You know, how do we define? How do we make a resolution? You know, do we have to identify the what? Why is it a concern, and articulate our opinions and stuff. So I threw together a little sheet that I don't have copies of for members of the public. It's a draft, just to look at view sheds and stuff. Now, we don't need to conclude this meeting, but this is giving us the opportunity to talk about it. Do we want to make a statement? Do we want to be less formal? Do we want to at least pass something on to the commissioners that we'd like them to have an awareness that we have concerns over protecting the view? For me, for instance, some of it goes back to the original Boardwalk committee when we decided to specifically to not put the high shower towers at the end of Rehoboth Avenue. Okay, well now we've got wireless that wants to come, and is it wise to convey to the city that we don't want any wireless antennas at the end of Rehoboth Avenue, for instance, that's gonna bore it up. For me, we recently, the commissioners recently put a sign up at the end of, or it's getting ready to go up at the end of Rehoboth Avenue. It's a VIA historical marker, it's very nice. There's already one there for the Christian Temperance Fountain. There's another one going to go up. But I guess what startled me is permission was given to put a sign up without going there to see, is there really sufficient location for the signs? And I think that we all need to have an awareness before we give permission to do so. We need to think, well, where's it going? Is that the best place for it? Do we want to protect the end of Rehoboth Avenue? Do we want to have other protection measures in for tall structures or things like that? So I'm just going to leave it open for discussion if we would start on the aesthetics part of this. Do we have any messages that we want to convey to the commissioners?
I think it's good. I mean, something that's permanent. I don't know logistically how to do it, but I mean, I think that it should get, some committee should be able to, say, look, this would be a more appropriate place for it, or so it's not, blocking the view of anything, or. I mean, that's just my thought on it. I mean, I think if it's a, something commemorating something that's, they're seen statewide and things like that, that's something good to have. But I mean, like the Wi-Fi antennas and, all that other stuff. I mean, I agree with you. You just don't want it all jumped up.
Well, Denrec has a water quality sign, but it was installed, it could have been installed anywhere. It could have been installed at the end of Rehoboth Avenue.
Yeah.
It could have been installed anywhere on the boardwalk, but it was installed mid-block between Rehoboth Avenue and Baltimore Avenue. And it's only 3 feet high, and it's right in the buffer zone between the dune and the
Right.
boardwalk. So it
Right.
doesn't look too bad.
Right.
But put 3 more of those at the end of Rehoboth Avenue, for
Exactly.
instance, and 5 foot high instead of 3 foot high. And we recommended dog poop bag boxes. Can we not entertain a something free zone aesthetically? I don't know the word for it. A zone at the end of Rehoboth Avenue.
Is there not already a boardwalk ordinance that governs signs on the boardwalks?
Yeah, but that's for retail businesses,
Just retail
not for
businesses?
city. The city can do whatever it wants.
Maybe a statement warning against the proliferation of more, in my mind, these are small things, but when you add them up, the totality kind of junks the area up.
Mhm.
I think the bigger issues really is the beach patrol / restroom on Baltimore Avenue, and then the one on Delaware Avenue to the south, when there's proposals maybe to increase the floor print of those places. And while in my mind the view is already obscured from the street level, when you're talking about property owners who have a second story, maybe even higher, the hotels on Baltimore Avenue, some of the homes on the first block, and maybe even the second block of Delaware Avenue, going up might sound like a good idea to most people, but put yourself in the shoes of the property owners who now have their views of the ocean obscured. They might cry foul.
Well, in our reports for the second floor of the beach patrol and maybe the restroom reports and something, we do articulate that the view shed is very important to us. So that could be re-articulated, for instance. That's more for physical structures and things.
I think maybe if people feel strongly enough about it, a moratorium on any new signs, monuments, commemorations, whatever you want to call them, on the boardwalk, particularly around the boardwalk in Rehoboth Avenue, which seems to be the focal point of the entire town.
Allison?
Do you think we can get a commitment from the commissioners that anytime something comes before them regarding the beach or the boardwalk in this manner, that we get some input to that first? since this committee does exist.
Right.
And as part of our mission statement.
I don't know. I mean, we could certainly ask, or we could, or we could offer to be there to do that. I think an example that's apropos is the art show that's going to be on the boardwalk at the end of in Memorial Day weekend. They didn't come to us for that, so they may, and they don't have to, because remember, we're advisory. That's how we started off the saying.
Didn't come to us either.
But
I was actually referring to
Susan,
like,
Susan Gay just mentioned that they didn't come to the commissioners either. So there may be a willingness to come to us. There may be a desire to avoid us. I don't know.
I guess I'm
We can
more
certainly
referring,
offer.
yeah, I'm more referring to like permanent installations
Right.
of signage and,
Right.
you know, all this wayfinding
Right.
signs, and
Right.
things that are going on, anything that's going to be permanently affixed to the boardwalk. I'm certainly not referring to events on the boardwalk.
Right,
I mean, that's within their purview to do, but anything that's going to be permanently affixed to the boardwalk or change the aesthetic of the boardwalk permanently, I think maybe we should have a seat at that table.
Okay. Okay. Well, my interest wasn't in finalizing this, but maybe I'll write up some more notes and get those out to you, and we'll see if we can finalize a statement to be able to give to the commissioners in March or something. Something like, is that all right? Anybody else? This is specifically with aesthetics. Part of our guiding principles: protect the brand, protect the view shed, and things like that.
Stan?
Yes, sir.
We're getting ready to do an overhaul of our code, and I would hope that we take a look at form-based code, which deals heavily with visual pollution and how you want your city to look. And the topic that we're discussing right now is really covered a concentration in form-based code, and I just want to keep that in mind. I hope we look at those options.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Anybody else? So we're going to move on from aesthetics and policy statements or some statements to commercialism. And again, we just introduced this at the last meeting. I don't intend to finalize it here, but if you remember, what precipitated this was that Coca-Cola made an offer to, in fact, Charlie, I think, passed it on to myself and others, that Coca-Cola offered a grant program for recycling on the boardwalk. And my familiarity with Coca-Cola grants goes back 10 years, that they'll give you free recycling bins, provided you it's in the red color with the white stripe on there, and you put Coca-Cola on there. And so that kind of gave rise to me, if that offer comes up again, do we really want to take it? Are we offended by sponsorships and things like that? Do we want to avoid them? Certainly as a way to get things financed, if you look at some of these other slides. But commercialism, what is it? Can we define it? What are some examples, and does it fit in the Rehoboth Beach Boardwalk brand? Jay was kind enough to send me this. I think this is the epitome of commercialism, you know? I don't know whether that's real Sprite or water coming out of it, but I thought that's kind of cute. Let me show you. Oops, let me look at something here. I wanted to go through, again, if you remember, we have 1,000 slides organized. So I keep pulling things out of them to kind of give us some, so let's look at some other town. Now remember, I'm the one that categorized these as commercialism, so they may be on mark or off mark, but they're here FYI. Bradley Beach has all these signs all over. Now admittedly, some of the signs are for exercise activities and things on the beach, but they're run by private companies. This is a surf school that's operated on the beach in Belmar. So it's obviously sanctioned by the city. To me, this is a good case of commercialism, where you've got something in the shape of a very recognizable cola brand. Here, you can see exactly what I mean here. Cola, they supply the trash drums, but also the recycle bins. And then you've got, this is actually more of a city calendar, but it has Coca-Cola Recycling sponsoring it. And you've got all these banners with Coca-Cola on them. I swear, I think this was, this was 2008. I think that Pepsi Cola's got them recently and they switched over to Pepsi. You got the different flyers. Now, a lot of these are electronic billboards that announce events within the city. But some of them announce commercial enterprises. That's an activity chart that seems fine. Here's right in the middle of the boardwalk, advertising Land Shark, some kind of beverage. It doesn't even tell you where to go for it, but there it is. We've got activities that maybe that's branded as commercialism, I don't know. You've got the different billboards, you got all the different banners and signs. Coca-Cola is pretty popular in those New Jersey towns. This is a directional sign. Maybe that's acceptable because it's directing people in different directions. Here's a Boardwalk business directory that might be acceptable. All I know from working on the Rehoboth Beach parking guide, where we had businesses listed on the back, it was very labor intensive every year to capture those that changed addresses, that were no longer in business, that came new into business. So that's kind of tricky. But anyhow, back to the, is that commercialism? Bradley Beach has, their boardwalk is actually pavers, and they let them use some of the boardwalk for dining. We've already seen that. This is actually run by the city, the sightseeing thing. Coca-Cola is everywhere. And then I guess newspaper boxes was more of a visual thing within the aesthetics conversation. But so what is commercialism? Anybody?
Pretty much everything you showed us.
Anything to do with Coca-Cola.
And Pepsi.
Well, my little handout sheet, I kind of threw some notes down just as a starter. Things that are business oriented, related to the selling of products, sponsorship of equipment using name recognition, commercial signage like for individual stores, certain activities could be commercial. Identify the subject well, the advertisement of businesses on the boardwalk and the beach, other than permitted signage on the storefronts. Right. Desire to avoid commercializing the boardwalk and beach as is seen in some of these other boardwalk towns. What is concern? Well, for me, desire to maintain and upgrade atmosphere, avoid cluttered appearance. Somebody mentioned that earlier. Protect the brand. That's Jay Legree's thing. Protect the brand. Even though we haven't identified it, we kind of know what we like. And for me, the brand is more of an upper scale, sophisticated look rather than all this junk and clutterness and banners and all that stuff. What are the concerns? Sponsorship of equipment detracts from the beauty of the boardwalk and the beach. Articulate opinions, avoid a decline in beauty, etc. Specialty events, are there any to avoid? Consider time of year, etc. So those are just my thoughts. Does anybody want to add on?
I was just thinking, like, anything that's in between the boardwalk and the ocean, should be approved and not commercialized. But then we have the umbrella stands that are on the beach now. Is there any regulations as to what they can put on those stands?
No, 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 I know, Allison, you brought that up before. Can Cats and Lineham put
Other than the
advertising,
name,
can
I
they
guess?
put advertising or Coke out there, or get all their umbrellas from Coca-Cola with the name on there and the color? I don't know.
That's something we should, look into as well.
I think we overlook the fact that we've already got commercialism on the boardwalk. But it's because of the manner of our boardwalk, as we've got retail stores that actually face the boardwalk. Now, their signs don't actually intrude on the boardwalk per se, but they ride in your face. So, but that's not to say that we should encourage additional independent commercialism on the boardwalk. I think the way it is right now, the signs of the stores, the products of the stores is sufficient. It's more than sufficient. We don't need to direct people using commercialism type signs.
So if I understand you're in agreement though, that beyond the stores,
There shouldn't be any
there shouldn't be
additional.
any other additional. Okay. Here's some examples. I don't want to mention names, but I think I sent you a note on one retail store on the boardwalk that has a radio program, and they advertise inside the radio. They've got they sell ads so that Stan's recycling vendor, radio ads coming across the store. But his ad also says it's also to capture all those thousands of people walking on the boardwalk.
It's
So
loud,
so
too.
that
It is
must
loud.
mean,
loud.
it's aimed to the outside there. Is that something we really want? Now, I don't know I don't recall what the noise code is that may take care of that, but to me, that's another form of commercialism, because that's putting names out on the boardwalk. And do we really want people to be bombarded? Do I want to be bombarded by that kind of noise? And my thought is, no.
No.
Stan, the issue that hits closest to home for me is, you've got businesses that pay rent and buy business licenses in this town. And while you can take any one event isolated, like Sea Witch, and say, hey, this is a great function, it's really popular, people love it. You multiply that out, and what's to stop, having different versions of Sea Witch and different events, different exhibitors on the boardwalk selling their wares, competing with the city's own small businesses. And from what I've seen, the only thing that really limits the proliferation of these special events are the number of weekends in the year.
Well, you've just segued into, frankly, the discussion about the Art League and the Crafts Fair. That is being touted. I think it was on the city website for the first time this week, announcing it.
And it may be a perfectly fine event with great intentions and popular and successful and all of that stuff, but my concern is like, where does it end, and how do you put the brakes on it when it becomes not just one or two or even a half a dozen big events a year, but literally a big major special event on the boardwalk every single weekend of the year that is possible.
Right.
What
Problem
weekend
is-
is that?
Sorry.
Memorial Day
Memorial Day
weekend.
Saturday.
The problem is it sets precedents. So going forward, whoever comes to the city and says, hey, but you allowed the Art League to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I know, in talking with Carol Everhart, the Chamber of Commerce has not been allowed to set up activities on the boardwalk. So I don't know what the dichotomy is there, I had planned for, and given notice to Sharon to kind of give us an update on how did it come to be, not to be
Accusingly.
angry about, it's just how did it come to be? Because I have a lot of questions, and again, they don't have to come to us for that, but I think that we would like them to. And the other thought is, how's it going to work? If you read the literature, it says it's 10 by 10 tents. They have to be professional. They have to have extra weights. They're going to be set up on the east side of the boardwalk. There's certain hours for loading and unloading. I'm just a policy guy. It says that if you're not selling the right merchandise, you're going to be asked to leave. Well, what if somebody were asked to leave in the middle of the day? Do you really want them packing it out, during the crowds? And The activity, I think, goes till, let's say it goes till 5, and it's all of a sudden 5 on a weekend, you're gonna have all these people unloading with dollies and all
Blocking
this
Rehoboth
stuff. So
Avenue and all
those
the
are the
streets.
logistics, what happens to all the benches? You've got all these tens of thousands of people wanting to sit and watch and crowd watch, and are they gonna be covered up behind the tents? Are they gonna be moved out? Those are the questions that I think I would pose if we were analyzing it ahead of time.
Well, we're the ones who are gonna get the complaint emails.
Say that again.
Our committee's the one that's gonna wind up with the complaint emails too.
Could be. Well, so, yeah, go ahead.
Bethany does a wonderful craft
Right.
show on the boardwalk, but
Right.
it's the Saturday after Labor Day. So it serves a purpose. It extends the season.
Yeah.
Because weekends before and after major holidays are always very slow. So, and it's a very successful event, but it's
Right.
done at the right time.
Well, I've always heard that a lot of these activities are planned specifically to bring people in and everything. And do we really need to bring people in over Memorial Day weekend?
Right.
You know, I question that. So, it's a done deal. What I suggest we do is come up with your own questions, and we can compile them or whatever. But over the Memorial Day weekend, be attentive to it. Go up and look at it, and buy some things, patronize them, but also look and see are there good things that happened out of it? Are there challenges that should have been addressed, or did it become a disaster? Did a tent blow away and injure somebody? So those are things after the fact.
I think the only way to approach this is, number one, we need to get a list of every event
Right.
throughout a 12-month span that we currently have as a reoccurring annual event, and include maybe in that the road races and all that. And without stepping on anyone's toes, because keep in mind that the promoters of these events, they have a lot invested. They've been doing it for years. It would be unfair to come and say, hey, you can't do this anymore, you know. But it might be worth exploring, like, how many of these events do we have? How many do we reasonably think that the city can tolerate or manage before it gets to be too much? And perhaps a recommendation to the commissioners might be, is there any way to kind of put a cap? We can keep the existing events, maybe add a few more, but have some kind of finite number so that it doesn't get to the point where every single weekend there's a major event on the boardwalk, you know, and it's a commercial center all of a sudden.
Right. See,
I know the Rehoboth Art League is charging the vendors $300 per a tent. There's got to be some expenses, which they're gonna keep, obviously. It's got to be some expense to the city. Are we getting reimbursed for anything we know of?
no clue.
Like you say, moving the benches, if we have to move benches or anything like that?
I don't know what the city's involvement is. I did find a brochure. If you go online, you can find a brochure of Art League with all their events. And don't get me wrong, I think it may be a good event. I just would like to look at the logistics so that I can anticipate problems ahead of time and try to avoid them. But their brochure does say this is Underwriters or Shell Brothers and Atlantic Sotheby's. So they've got some commercial underwriters on this thing. And so one of my curiosities is gonna be, are there gonna be signs somewhere up there that's advertising their
Advertising,
sponsorship?
No doubt.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Yeah, yeah. So we
You saying
don't.
no?
They said I asked the city that question specifically.
Okay.
Yeah. So Susan Gay just indicated she had asked
They'll
the
be on
city.
top of all the tents.
Right?
And the answer would be no. So again, I think we're at the point where, nobody asked us, and that's fine, but we're kind of perhaps have our nose out of joint that we would have liked to have been asked. And we certainly want to maybe evaluate this after the fact and then consider what other events are. I know that I, as a commissioner, when I was a commissioner, got frequent complaints about use of the boardwalk for running races and everything. People are trying to walk up there, and all of a sudden they've got, and this happened to me. I'm walking on the boardwalk, and an ATV comes roaring at me as fast as it can, yelling to get off to the side, get off to the side, get off to the side, because the racers are right behind me, and I'm telling you, it's startling, but maybe that's okay occasionally, but.
People are here for vacation. I think this is personally, I think the issue that I have with it is, and I agree exactly what everyone has said, we are either having a race or something going on. And the thing that just irritates me beyond belief is at 6 o'clock in the morning or 6:30 in the morning, I hear, run faster, run faster, run faster. Unfortunately, at my house, my bedroom's in the front of the house. And it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's to the point where, you know, Rehoboth needs to really look at things, and I think it goes with the boardwalk too. Are we in it for these people who are in the town for a limited amount of time? They come in, they jam everything up, you know, they make it inconvenient for the people who live here, the people who are vacationing here and everything, and then they go. And then they leave all the trash everywhere. I mean, I pick up like the cups on Henlopen Avenue right in front of my house. There was some guy during one of the races who decided to use my backyard as his toilet. I mean, it gets to the point where it's getting ridiculous. And I think, you know, with the Art League, although I'm in favor of everything that they do, and I think they do a great job, but they're now pushing the responsibility of their art show onto the city of Rehoboth when they're in Henlopen Acres. So now anybody who's on Henlopen, Columbia, and over to Park, we're the ones who are suffering because everybody in the world's going to park where we are. And now I think the issue that you're having this huge art show, it's free, on the boardwalk, that's sponsored by Henlopen, you know, for the Art League that's in Henlopen Acres. They're pushing everything on the boardwalk. We're using taxpayers' money to move all these benches, to clean up and everything else. And the Art League is getting paid by all these vendors to display everything. I mean, I think we're getting the wrong end of the deal.
We don't know the details.
I'm just stating my.
We don't know the details.
I'm just
There
stating my
could
fact
be-
on it.
there
That we
could
ought to
be
find out.
There could be a fee or whatever. So
Yeah, but-
according to Frank's recommendation, suggestion is to try to get a list of all the events that use the boardwalk and look and see if there's a pattern or frequency that maybe is.
I just want to be clear. I don't think the city should single out any one group saying this group's bad, this group's okay, but it might be a reasonable thing to look at. How many events do we have? Would it be reasonable to cap the number of events there or as close to there as possible? And, you know, is it going to be 20 events a year, 26 events a year?
Right.
There must be a happy medium, a number in there somewhere that keeps the residents happy, but also gives at least the current exhibitors or events, you know, some assurance that they'll be able to hold their events in the future.
Right.
Right. Anybody, commercialism, back to commercialism, that was our main topic. So activities on the boardwalk can be part of the commercialism.
And the parks.
Okay. So we'll wind that up, we'll take that up at our next committee meeting, give us more thoughts and look, and then at some point after Memorial Day, be able to evaluate that event and see if we have any recommendations or questions.
The town of Bethany Beach, going back to them, they do the Fire and Ice Festival, which is a winter festival. They do 2 major running events per year, Bunny Palooza, and they do the Polar Bear Plunge, and they do a run with the plunge. And they do a massive bike race that brings about 3,500 to 4,000 cyclists into town. And every one of those events and they do the art show. And those are all done on opportunity weekends where the business and the visitors would otherwise not be there.
Opportunity weekend.
Those are opportunity weekends, and they have done a great job. And those weekends that they specify for these events are over and above what the businesses would normally see in
That's a
terms of
good
business.
point.
And I think that's a great way to use the boardwalk,
Good
and that's
point.
what they do.
Good point, interesting term. Just want to clarify that some of those events that you cited, the races and things, I doubt use the boardwalk.
Both
they're
running
dual
races use the boardwalk because I do the lead out.
Races use the
Yes,
boardwalk.
because I'm the cyclist who leads out the runners. So
She's
rather
the one
than
going-
I'm the one, but I'm not on an ATV, I'm on a bike. So I come down the boardwalk first with the runners running
Yeah.
behind me, and I
Yeah.
clear the boardwalk. So those are both done on the boardwalk. The art show's done on the boardwalk. The Fire and Ice Festival is done on the boardwalk. And the cycling race with the 3,000 to 4,000 cyclists, which sells out every year
Is
first
that
weekend.
on the boardwalk?
That is concentrated on the boardwalk. They do registration on the boardwalk, they do bands on the boardwalk, they do exercise programs on the boardwalk, and they have food
Yeah.
on the boardwalk.
Interesting.
All of
Correct.
those events are on the boardwalk.
Correct me if I'm wrong though, that Bethany's boardwalk is separate. It's an independent boardwalk. There's no commercialism, no retail stores that backs onto the actual.
There's some, there are some.
But mainly not. Yeah.
There are commercial businesses to the south side of Garfield Parkway, and then there are some restaurants and other commercial businesses to the north side.
But yes, minimal. Right.
Minimal compared to Rehoboth. But my point, the bigger point being is that they're not disturbing an otherwise busy weekend. They're not piling on, they're supplementing and
Right,
complementing.
right. That's a good way to put it. Good way to put it. Very good. Anything else? So we'll get back to that. We'll move on to discussion and possible consideration of assigning a committee representative to be on a proposed future Lake Gerard Master Plan work group. Sharon, let me bring it up here. You may recall we talked about a master plan for Gerard Park, and the brief history of this is that the tot lot over in this area, will that thing show up? Doesn't show up very well. Almost dead center, there's a tot lot that needs to be replaced. They want to replace it ADA compliant. In doing so, they want to expand it because ADA playground equipment takes more room, so they want to expand that area. And they thought, well, at the same time, they got two of our reports. One report was on bike routing to the north end of the boardwalk, and the other was on restroom sufficiency, specifically indicating it's beeping. It's trying. Somebody else is trying to call in, indicating. We thought it needed to be analysis in the north for restroom sufficiency, et cetera. So they took that, gave that to the architect, and he came up with this master plan. If this gets budgeted, which is a question mark this year, but if it gets budgeted, then Sharon's going to form a working group. And she would like probably somebody from the Henlopen condos, somebody from the Street and Transportation Committee, because remember, they were interested in bicycle paths up there. Somebody from the Boardwalk and Beach Committee because of our interest in restrooms and all that stuff. So this is in its formative stages. If I wanted to announce it to see if anybody wanted to volunteer for it, or see if we needed 1, 2, or 3 volunteers. So if number 1 can't make it, then number 2 or 3 can. So I wanted to see if there's any interest here. We can also poll the members that couldn't be here today. But I think we need a brief discussion on the parameters and the scope of what that committee member can do, and see if you agree with me that participation on that committee, I believe, needs to be limited to the committee topics, which is the bike routing in the north and the restroom sufficiency. I don't even know if we have enough room to say that that restroom in Gerard Park is the best location of all, because we haven't gotten any information on possible other locations, you know? So that's a question mark. The top of the page, top right, is the Mariner Square triangle that's been consumed by asphalt and additional parking spaces. And then they have all those trees lining the area there. I don't know if the Mariner Square triangle is something that really is in the purview of our committee. What is the routing onto and off the boardwalk there. So I have to use some kind of discretion on how much we can say. I don't believe a committee member on that committee would have an opinion on a kayak launch, an amphitheater, a fountain, array of fountains, and the circle, unless the circle was apropos to directing bicycles better onto the boardwalk or something. So I wanted to get your feedback on my take on participating in that committee. And again, I don't think that representatives should say, talk about the amphitheater, because us as a committee have not talked about it and developed an opinion as a committee. Maybe as a working group gets together, maybe their first meeting, they talk about stuff in general, and then maybe that representative brings back to the committee some ideas, and then we can offer something. But again, I think it has to be limited to things that we have done in the committee. Any thoughts?
It would be appropriate for you to serve on that committee.
Kelly.
Honestly, I mean, really, I think you're the appropriate person to represent
okay.
us. You have access to all of
Okay.
our opinions.
Was there any other volunteers? Because it would require, I think, reading up on the reports and kind of being the subject expert, if you will. I would certainly meet with the volunteers, and I will consider, if nobody else wants to, I would certainly consider
I'd do
that.
it.
I think Honey would probably do it as well, because she's a condominium.
She's
Henlopen
she's
condominium.
already met with the city on behalf of the Henlopen condos, so unfortunately, hi honey, sorry, but, I don't think that she would be a good candidate to represent the committee.
Right.
That she would be better representing the condo
Independent,
association, yeah.
Yeah, I'd be up for it.
Okay. Anybody else? Frank, were you gonna say something, or?
I just wanted to volunteer Honey. Good points.
Okay, so let me pull the others too, and then we'll get back with it. Is everybody okay with Jimmy doing it?
Yeah.
As maybe the number one, and then we'll pull the others to see if we have a two, and I'll be a backup or something. It could be that they have meetings at times that you can't even make it,
That was my next.
So we don't know. Again, this is in its infancy. Don't know whether it's even going to be formed, or how it's going to be run, or the frequency of meetings or anything. But and we're doing pretty good on time. Let's see. We've got the next thing: committee member and citizen comment. This is just anything to throw anything out. Anybody throw? Oh yeah, Commissioner Susan Gay. Go ahead.
I've just been learning a lot listening to you all today, and I want to get to these meetings before, and I haven't had the opportunity recently, but I just did want to say, I really appreciate all the thoughtfulness that you all put into all the issues you talk about, and the very well-crafted set of recommendations that came to the commissioners. I wish all committees did that. It's really very helpful. But a couple of things I picked up from today. First of all, the recycling discussion was very educational for me. And I like the emphasis on the aesthetic, and picked up on, when Frank said the word subtle, yes. I mean, I like what you all picked, and I think subtlety is certainly, that's my personal opinion. I'm speaking for that as more my personal opinion rather than my opinion as a commissioner. But I'll also say that I think all the kind of things you talked about, both with the aesthetic as well as the subtle appearance and the sophisticated look of the city and all that, does go to the brand image of the city. I mean, you basically have established the brand image of the city, and all that goes to our quaintness, and I think all those things go together. So I'm glad that you all have addressed it in that way. And I have to tell you, the commercialization some of those images you showed are just downright scary. And I don't know whether our current ordinances on signage address all of that or not. I do know that digital signage is a big deal in other communities. In Montgomery County, Pennsylvania right now, there's a huge court battle over digital signage along roadways. So, and I think we have an ordinance against digital signage here, I believe. But, I think it's good for you all to look at especially permanent signage on the boardwalk, because maybe that's not completely addressed within our code, and maybe it needs to be. In terms of the events, my understanding is that there are events every weekend in the summer, and that was why they picked the Memorial Day one because there's already, for better or worse, something every weekend. And I'm sure there's a list somewhere, and I think it would be good. You all might want to see that. But I will tell you, the special events don't come to the commissioners. That's something that's done, by city staff. So that's not in our purview, but you may want to look at a list. There are a lot of them, and my understanding too is the city turns down dozens and dozens every year, as well as the ones that they accept. So that's my 2 cents.
To me, that almost lends another question. If you turn down dozens and dozens, what is your process for selection? I was approached by the VIA years ago about running a race, that all the slots were taken for races, and then they were told by the then city manager, to contact XYZ company that apparently either had a monopoly on races or reserved most of the slots. And I wasn't sure at the time that that was fair, giving them all to one company or something, you know, and that the VIA had to go through that company. And I always question, in their policy or a process, like a lottery, that it's more fair? I don't know.
And
Go ahead.
that's, some of these events, I mean, we're specifically focused on the boardwalk.
Yeah.
So there are events at the bandstand that don't necessarily involve the boardwalk, although the tendency is to spill over a little bit. Also with the road races, and I hate to pick on those people because they do a good job, but you know, some of their races, the routing is on the boardwalk. Others, the race starts at Wilmington Avenue and goes west on Wilmington Avenue. And you usually see a large crowd of people and maybe some sign-up desks, you know, close to the boardwalk. So I think it's important to draw the distinction. This isn't about all special events. It's just about the ones that are taking place directly on the boardwalk.
Right, absolutely. Charlie, citizen comment?
Charlie Garlow, 82 Sussex Street, Rehoboth Beach. Speaking on my behalf of myself as a citizen.
Citizen, very good.
Exactly, sir. Did I hear you earlier mentioning, Stan, about the water bottle refill stations on the boardwalk? Did I miss exactly is that funded? Is that going to happen?
No, that was one of our recommendations within the budget priorities, and it received no priority. It was just thrown in at the last minute, along with some other things. They have not been brought up by the commissioners at this point, and I think I did hear your committee talk about refill stations, and I think they gave a number like in the 20s or 30s or something. You know, we have 4 water stations on the boardwalk, and the 5th one in the middle is the Women's Christian Temperance Fountain. So obviously that would not be changed to a water fill station, but the others could be. The thing is, I think most of them, if not all of them, but most of those 4 have already been updated. So it might be that they choose to wait till another cycle before they start putting refill stations in. My recollection in listening to your committee, they gave a number of 20 or 30 or something that seemed to include the shower towers. And I can tell you from being in all these other New Jersey boardwalk towns, I have seen a couple shower towers that have integral water fountains and integral water fill stations. And frankly, it grosses me out. Yeah. The thought of people showering while I'm trying to drink. And so I would say that's probably not a good idea, but maybe we can find some other independent areas. So to answer your question, we haven't gotten any reaction from the city yet.
Very good. I'm not trying to push a certain number of water refill stations for bottles, just the idea of using perhaps those first 4 as a pilot before you do anything more, the 4 drinking fountains we now have. Just because that helps to encourage people like you, Stan, to bring their refillable bottles rather than use them once and throw them away, plastic, or recycle them, the plastic bottles, because we want to try to reduce the amount of plastic in our world, since the plastics too frequently get thrown in the trash or littered, worse, and then into the ocean and harming the environment and the sea critters that are out there. So I applaud your committee for trying to pursue that. The Environment Committee may do as well. One other thought I had while I'm up here is I appreciate the fact that people want to have our recycling bins look aesthetically pleasing, and I do agree with the fact that the plastic bags that's over the outside edge makes it look like you haven't tucked in your shirt tail or something like that, which some people seem to feel is fashionable, but I think that most of us here have thought that as not being the best aesthetic look for a recycling or trash bin. So my back of the envelope engineering solution would be to see if there isn't some way we could have the plastic bag overflowing the outside of the barrel, as you saw in some of the pictures that you had there, but then wrapping around the outside of that, a cummerbund sort of deal that would cover up the plastic bag that would be easily clasped onto with Velcro or something, so that the staff people that come along and go rip off that cummerbund, let it fall down on the ground, take out the plastic bag with the recycling and or the trash, and then put the cummerbund back around covering up the plastic bag so that it would look a little better. I don't know whether you go for that idea or not, but I would propose it for you.
Well, thank you. That's been proposed to Kevin before, and I think the response reflects exactly what you indicated. You indicated that there's more steps to do that,
Yes.
and Public Works isn't interested in that. But doing something to clean up the bags, I would really like to do it, even if it meant putting a liner in the center.
If you have a plastic bag liner inside the barrel, then you can have the plastic bag go over the outside of
Well,
the
if-
liner.
if
Is that
you-
what you're
if you
thinking? The
look-
whole liner goes inside the barrel?
Correct. If you look at the concrete barrels on Rehoboth Avenue, they have a plastic tube inside. Plastic
Bin.
trash bin inside that they pull out, put a bag in, tie it around. So that's the exact same system I would love to see entertained in the future. However, I recognize that maybe it's easier to accomplish things one step at a time.
I agree. I think that also, though, of course, involves a second effort on the part of the staff to be able to get the plastic bag to go around the outside of the inner tube and inside the outer tube. That's extra effort either way. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank
Keep
you.
up the good work.
Thank you. Anything else? I need your help. We'll get you out of here at 11, I believe. I need your help, and that is, I solicited potential agenda topics from the city manager, who then forwarded it to their city departments. And they sent back things for thought, again, potential agenda topics. And I wanted to share some of them with you. Does the committee support transition to LED lighting along the length of the boardwalk? So my question in reading some of these is, are these the purview of the committee, or are they the purview of the city manager? Do we want to say, do we not want to say, or have we already done some of these things? So for the LED lighting, I just wrote down my own responses to maybe talk with the city manager or something, but I wanted some feedback. This is LED lighting. I said, we need a minimum amount of lighting brightness on the boardwalk, period. I mean, you can't reduce it. Saving money would sound good, but seems more likely a city management decision.
Great.
Y'all right with that? Number 2, does the committee support construction of accessible facilities, restroom, family restroom, changing room in Lake Gerard Park? My thought was, in our reports, we support analysis of restroom sufficiency, including the need of family restrooms and changing rooms somewhere in the north areas of the boardwalk. In order to evaluate construction of a new restroom in Gerard Park, I believe the committee would need to hear from the city on its analysis of all potential locations in the north, and then its determination that Gerard Park is the only or the best location. So I don't see it as an easy response. So I'm contemplating sitting down with Sharon and telling her. So I'm seeing some nodding and agreement.
Great.
Does the committee support a potential reconfiguration of the existing parking lot, Triangle Park, at the north end of the boardwalk? I said, in the committee's report on bike routing on the north end of the boardwalk, we articulate that current routing on and off the boardwalk is not satisfactory, and we gave a few suggestions on reconfigurations for consideration. None of our suggestions consumed any of the triangular area. I believe the committee would need to hear why the plan in the Lake Gerard master plan includes the reconfiguration of the entire triangular campus was selected over the other options provided by this committee. Because remember, we spent a lot of time, we provided some committee recommendations that did not consume that. So again, if she wants to pursue it and pushes, I'm willing to do that, but she's gonna have to provide additional information. I'm getting nods on that. Does the committee support the use or placement of portable toilets on July 4th, as was done in 2019 at selected street ends? In our reports, we support analysis of restroom sufficiency, including of the need for family restrooms and changing rooms somewhere in the north areas of the boardwalk. We also support the use of portable toilets in order to reduce wait times to use facilities, whether they're brick and mortar restrooms or portable toilets. Placement of the portable toilets was assumed to be assumed to be co-located with the existing restrooms, but not articulated in the report. That's from my memory, I don't know if it's right.
And we talked about
In
doing
discussions of placement of restroom facilities, including portable toilets in the south, space limitations were mentioned as well as negative reception of residents. I believe placement of portable toilets that other than co-locating with the 3 restrooms to be the purview of the city manager.
We had also talked about Deauville.
About what?
Deauville,
About,
portable, maybe a
okay,
test.
well,
of-
there are some there
Have it
now.
there.
maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like
Okay.
three there usually.
Okay.
Let's see, 6, does the committee support a potential pedestrian access way between the boardwalk and Lake Gerard Park along Grenoble Place? I think what he's referring to is, see the gray horizontal lines?
Yeah.
Those are both walkways from the boardwalk to Lake Gerard Park. So the question is, do we support those pedestrian access ways? I said the committee already issued a report on the importance of routing bikes and pedestrians onto the north boardwalk, so I think this is already covered. Does the committee support the purchase of electric vehicles for trash and recycling on the boardwalk? In an earlier report stemming from discussions on eliminating a large trash truck from the boardwalk, it articulated that green technology was preferred and welcome over combustion engines. So I think we already covered that. Infrastructure upgrades. Power and fiber were previously discussed for extending our video systems. I don't know what the question is there because we've said, do it. We recommend doing it. And I don't know that we care, there's a little kind of challenge of agreement of which way to go, fiber or hardwire or whatever between IT and chief. So I think we've already done that. Possibly implementing blue light stations. Now there's something that we could come up again with. I think the chief would like an additional discussion of security, and that security could have blue light stations, it could have lighting on it, it could have other things. Are you familiar with blue light stations? Blue light station, are you familiar?
Every college campus in the country.
Right.
Exactly.
So maybe that's something we would
Definitely.
want to talk about. And then Public Works, Mike put in, would the committee recommend continued single board replacement or get a contractor to come in? I indicated that I thought at this point that's more of the administrative type of thing, because we've talked about individual boards actually maximizes each board's versus replacing big sections. The city is able to apply for a permit to maintain access ways and snow fencing. How much responsibility is the city willing to take in regards to maintaining beach access and snow fence? That's the city manager's decision. Beach access mats. Is the committee in the near future in agreement to have every beach access covered with mats? If so, there will be added daily maintenance to clean them off. I think we have recommended that additional be pursued per whatever program the city manager has. And so I don't know that we need to go beyond that and say, and judge that everyone should have it. So that's all I got from the city. Does anybody else have any potential agenda items they'd like us to talk? We've got future agenda, rules and dates on the boardwalk. Steve wanted to look at that. We'll get Chief Banks in to talk about that. Because that's been done before, and it's been in front of the commissioners before. So I'll see if I can find my old literature. And it was decided to leave it as it is. So we'll see if Chief Banks even wants to go there or whatever. But is there anything else that we'd like?
Covered everything.
We've got 68 seconds. Anything else out here? And let's see, where are we? Agenda comments. I have the next meeting for February 24th. I really set that in case we were not settled with the recycle bin colors. And if we wanted one more combination, I had time to do it and meet and confirm it. So I will look at the calendar and our thing and see whether we want to retain that or go to our March schedule or something.
I
If that's,
can't make the February. I
you
just-
can't make the February 24th, and you can't make February 24th. That's a Monday, but you can't make it. Okay. So we'll look and see how important things are and time-wise, and that's it. So if there's nothing else, I want to thank you very much. Great meeting, and I'd like to call this meeting adjourned at exactly 11 o'clock. Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin.